I didn't think it was right for me to place that onus on them where it properly belongs here. So while you're correct that it was what we decided to do, I thought it would have been easy to do. It turns out it wasn't easy to do. But I think we've come to a place now where we have some stuff to do. If you're good with that, Nancy, I'd like to
Yes.
hear from Attorney DePazzo Gilbert, who I believe represents the one of the parties. Jennifer?
Yes, thank you so much, and good evening, members of the board. I want to thank Dan Martin and Dan Murphy for meeting with me at the site uh, the Friday before the holiday weekend. The applicant I represent is David Jensen, who's the trustee of the Platform 9 3/4 Trust. There is a minor child living at 16 Hawes who requires a handicap space, but more importantly, and I think not necessarily more importantly, but there are other handicapped folks that come to visit this home. Specifically, there is a full-time nurse now that comes to the home to care for the minor child who is also disabled and has a placard and requires a space. So it is not just for the family. I do want to raise a couple of concerns about this space. Number one, we applied for this in January, and I understand there's a variety of reasons why it took so long. Nevertheless, I am asking that a sign be put up immediately, even if it's on a temporary basis, while the other work by the town is done, so that we can start using that space. The other issues I wanted to raise was I'm questioning whether or not this is ADA compliant, compliant with access, compliant with the required measurements, and the grade at the path of travel. I would like the town to take a look at the dimensions and mark them out again just to make sure it is compliant and it meets all of the accessibility standards. I'm asking this for the safety of both people and vehicles. And with respect to vehicles, this is a tight turn at this corner. So I would ask that the town do a turn study or analysis. At one of our prior meetings, I believe it was someone representing either the fire department or the police department. I'm sorry, I can't remember who, either fire or police, that raised the issue of a fire truck turning there. I do have a video of a school bus trying to make the turn and they jump the curb, and a trash truck making the turn. I just would like the town to take a look at that. And then in conclusion, I would just ask that a temporary sign go up ASAP so the space can be in use while these other items are, reviewed by the town to make sure of the compliancy. And I want to thank the board for their time this evening.
Thank you very much. I cannot commit to putting up the signs immediately just because of the way our process works. There's a 30-day cooling off period and these things take time, but I can assure you we will certainly ask staff to expedite any signage that goes up if this is approved.
Thank you.
Miss Audette, would you like to speak?
Hi, good evening. Yes, my name is Brianna Audette. I'm an attorney at the firm Lawson and Whiteson in Boston, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Robert and Kathleen Schoen, who are the owners and residents of 10 Beach Road, which directly abuts the applicant's property at 16 Hawes Street. Very briefly, my clients do not oppose the applicant's request for an accessible parking space and feel like the proposed location in front of 16 Hawes Street on Beach Road is appropriate. However, I just want to note that to the extent that the board is considering alternative locations, such as in front of 10 Beach Road, in front of my client's property, we do have concerns about that location, and I would ask to be heard on those concerns to the extent that location is being considered. But again, I want to reiterate that the Schoens do not oppose the request for an accessible parking space in front of 16 Hawes Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Audette. If we, through our discussion, come back to the alternative, I will certainly call upon you again.
Thank you.
Okay, questions from the board, comments, or sorry, is there anybody else who would like to comment on this item at this time? You can use the raise hand function and I will call on you as I see ya. I see 34 people here, and I don't see any hands going up. Okay, so let's turn back to the board. Questions, comments, concerns? I'll go first. And I think I have the same concern now that I had in June, which is the tree that is directly in front of both proposed spaces, or certainly in front of 16 and 10. And I don't want to speak for Attorney DePazzo Gilbert, but I think that that gets to some of the concerns around the deployment of any lift or ramp equipment. And so I guess I'm just going to ask you, Dan Murphy and or Dan Martin. I mean, are you guys are staff comfortable with this location meeting the minimal ADA requirements and being able to deploy the lift as needed, even in rain, sleet, snow, or other conditions?
So we did check the location. We think this will work with a ramp deployment. We are going to level that surface there, which should make it easier. And if they do have issues, we can go out and reassess. This isn't a permanent, it's just signed. So if needed, we could move it again. But we think this will work.
Have you put this through Synchro or any sort of turning radius software?
Not yet. It's a low volume road, but we can check the turning radius.
Obviously, the park across with the beech trees is a pretty special place that we don't necessarily want cars driving on. So, I feel like we're in a difficult position here as a board. Obviously, there's a child who needs accommodation that it is well within his or her rights to request, and I think we have to do it if we can find the right place. I guess at this point, given that it's been since January, I, as an individual member of this board, am willing to go with the proposed location here on the corner. It'll to at least get started, hoping that it can work and hoping that we won't have to go back in front of the other property, so we can avoid some potential more time being taken. So I guess that's where I come down on this. I don't know where other board members are.
I'm in agreement.
Same with me.
So just to be clear in the language, what the staff recommendation is that we vote to install a temporary accessible parking space in front of 16 Hawes Street. And that is correct, right? 16 Hawes Street. On Beach Road to reduce the no parking, and reduce the no parking anytime restriction for the duration of the residential construction project until the certificate of occupancy is issued.
Oh, sorry,
Eh.
that the last part you can strike. This is going to be a permanent handicap space.
Correct, thank you.
Okay, so it's install an accessible parking space in front of 16 Hawes Street on Beach Road.
Yep.
Period.
That's it.
And again, as I said to Attorney DePazzo Gilbert, while we have to go through our procedures, I would request that you folks expedite this as much as possible, given that it's been since January. We do have to, of course, take our 30 days and go through all of our processes and procedures, and we should do that all correctly.
Brian, I would
and-
just say it's 21 days, not 30, but we will.
21 days. Thank you, Sam. Okay, look at that. Just saved you 9 days. Or 10 in some cases. Okay, so that is there a motion to that effect from a transportation board member?
So moved.
Thank you, Len. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Sam, Dan, Amy, someone call the roll, please.
Wendy,
Yes. I think that was
Len,
me.
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yeah.
And Brian.
Yes. So it's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for working through the issues, and let's hopefully get this get this taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to item 5B, which is a discussion and action on Russet Road traffic calming to be included as part of the transportation and mobility plan improvements. And we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule, which makes me happy. Who's got this
Great.
one?
Thank you, Brian. It's me again. So item 5B, the Russet Road. So transportation mobility plan has identified Russet Road for maintenance work. It's going to be repaved. And along with that work, we're going to be updating the ramps to be ADA compliant and repairing the sidewalks and also painting the crosswalks and stop lines. As part of that work, we'd like to include traffic calming. The development next to this road on the Chestnut Hill Realty, which is just west of Russet Road, has contributed money for mitigation to install traffic calming in the neighborhood. And our proposal is 4 speed humps on Russet Road that are spread out approximately 300 feet, and that should prevent cars from going from increasing speed between them. So we'll keep the speed closer to 20 miles per hour, which is the posted speed limit out here. It's a 20 mile per hour safety zone. Because of the upcoming paving and the traffic mitigation money we have, we're looking to skip the typical traffic calming process, which would normally require up to 4 public meetings. On this road, we've received a traffic calming request, and we've also received numerous emails in the past asking for speed humps and always stop at the intersection of Russet and Asheville Road. The intersection did not qualify for an always stop. It didn't meet the METC warrants, but although we can't use stop signs for speed control, we feel that the speed humps will be sufficient to slow down cars. Let me pull up the plan for the board to see.
Thank you.
So here we have Independence and Grove and Beverly and Russet. So Russet Road begins at Independence. And what we're proposing is the first speed hump to be roughly 300 feet from Independence Drive. And then as you continue south, the next, at Grassmere and Thorndike, the next area, there's an always stop, and that's roughly 300 feet away. And then the next speed hump, roughly 300 feet from there, and then 100 feet from Asheville Road at Russet. And then roughly 100 feet from that intersection is another proposed speed hump. And then we have another one roughly 300 feet away as you get close to VFW Parkway. And then VFW Parkway is not town right away, but we do have a section of Russet Road, which is still in Brookline. And in that section, there's a stop sign at Country Road. So we don't think we'll need traffic coming on this stretch. The 2 intersections are close spaced enough together.
Okay.
And then as you can see, we're doing the wheelchair ramp repairs and painting the crosswalks.
So, Dan, at the intersection of Independence and Russet, did you look at tightening up that corner at all? Sort of where Grove, Independence, and Russet meet?
It's a fairly narrow road. I don't know how much opportunity we have, and it's not our right of way. We could ask how much more we could do, but we're limited to how much work we can do actually on the VFW though.
Who owns Independence?
You said
No,
Independence,
sorry.
right?
Sorry, VFW, Independence.
Go up to the first one.
So
yeah.
we're stopping. We're not doing the wheelchair ramps yet here because there is funding set aside for Independence and Grove to
Okay.
do
So
improvements for bike and peds. So this would be a future project that would likely touch that intersection.
Makes sense. Okay, thanks. Jonathan, go ahead, please.
Actually, Brian, I think you might have asked my question.
I'm learning finally over the years, Jonathan.
I know. But just to reiterate, so the stop line looks like it's outside of the work. And
Yeah,
does it
we're
need to be within, okay.
we're
Go
going
ahead.
just shy of the intersection because we do plan to do that work with the work on in Independence.
Sorry, Dan, what's the timing on that project?
To be determined. It's at least a year out. We're waiting for the completion of Hancock Village to see if there's a traffic signal going to be built at their driveway, and that will help base the design for Independence, depending on how that looks.
We are also kicking off a project with tool design for the South Brookline to North Brookline, bike improvement project. And so as part of that, tool design may be looking at this section of road and could help propose what improvements could take place on Independence and Grove.
Understood.
And just a quick follow-up on VFW Parkway. So we are doing the head ramps there, but they are not in our right of way?
I think we're right on the edge.
Oh, big forgiveness, right?
Yeah, that should be in our right of way, I would think.
Okay.
Okay, Dan, does that conclude what you had to present?
Yes. Also.
Cool. Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to public comment. Alyssa Jonas, I see your hand. Please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Elisa Jonas and I live at 333 Rutsett Road. And I want to thank you for finally getting to the paving of our horrible road. I just first just wanted to make a comment on behalf of Jamie Saltman, who's not able to be here tonight. And he says that he would like everyone to know that he's thrilled that there's a proposal to do traffic calming on Russett Road. Also, Regina Frawley is not able to be here, but for years she's been concerned about repaving the street without a water main having been replaced, that the water main is very old and it would be too bad to repave and then have this water main issue. So I am just wanting to follow up on that. Does anyone know about the status of the water main? And when you're digging up for the repaving, will you be able to see how that's going? So, so this is for Jamie and Regina.
Okay, well,
And
yeah, keep going.
my personal concern is the same as Chen Neer. I live in the same area where she does. The area, especially near Grassmere, coming down to Grassmere, from Independence is kind of a bowl, the bottom of a bowl. There's hills that are on all sides, even though the Russet Road Hill is relatively mild. And we've had flooding several times. We've had it go over the sidewalk. All of us have been out there, and well, some of us in the neighborhood have been out there with tall boots and trying to get the leaves cleared from the drainage. The drainage openings so that more water can get released. So I too am very much hoping that that will be addressed. I don't know if you've seen, Chen sent you a memo with her concerns. I don't know whether you've had a chance to read it, but two of the proposals that she's provided was adding additional drainage openings along the lower section of Russet Road and recalculating the road grade to slow down the runoff, especially where the slope leads toward Grassmere Road. So I do hope you will all consider that when you're doing the redesign. Thanks.
Ms. Jonas. Steve Krug, I think you were next.
Hi. If you can't hear me, let me know. I've had a bad cough
You're good.
for 2 weeks now. I've been concerned for quite a while about the traffic coming out of from Hancock Village out of Asheville for many years now, because historically people never stopped at that stop sign. They might act like they were considering stopping, or do the kind of touch and go thing. But so I've sort of, for years now, I have always made a point of slowing down when I come to Asheville. I live on Russet below, down near VFW. Slow down because I really feel like eventually I'm just going to get T-boned by somebody who decides to come through Asheville without looking. I know my neighbors have been concerned about speed on Russet, and so I'm glad to hear that something's being done about it. I do feel like the proposal is probably overkill. And part of it's caused by the fact that there really should be a four-way stop on Asheville for a number of reasons. One of them is that out of the 4 corresponding intersections on Russet, Bonad, Asheville, and what's the other one called? I can never remember. Grassmere. 3 out of the 4 are four-way stops. And I think a lot of people who don't come through the neighborhood that often have an expectation that they're all four-way stops. That and the fact that the approach to Russet from Hancock Village on Asheville is a downhill, and I think people are just in a hurry to get out of there, and they tend to not to do it. So I think that probably I wonder if there isn't a better way to. I was glad that finally about 6 months ago, I think there were small sub signs put in on the stop signs on Asheville that said in small print, cross traffic does not stop, which I think was a help. But I keep track, and I honestly think that I see a car failing to stop, failing to come to a full stop at any rate at Asheville every other week. And that's just been going on forever. So I think four-way stop would be very much warranted and very helpful. So the traffic, it would be worse for us as people who live here, because we would have to stop every time we came to Asheville, but I think it's worth it. And so I wasn't too surprised to see that the reason why that wasn't considered was because the Asheville intersection doesn't meet the criteria for a four-way stop. I sort of knew there would be a criteria somewhere, that the road would be a little too narrow or something. And I would ask that there be some consideration as to whether or not that could be made a four-way stop. At what we have now is a proposal for 4 speed humps in 3 blocks, which even if you came across this coming through a school zone, you would think was pretty excessive. And I don't think it's the right solution. Two of those 4 are surrounding the Asheville intersection. I think it makes sense to have one at the Independence end, so that as traffic's coming in from a higher speed road, they immediately get notice that they need to slow down. And at our end, down by VFW, I think the same thing holds true, that if you're getting off VFW, it would be good to come across a speed hump relatively soon. But once you've come through that speed hump, then you're not going to go very far before you would come to the four-way stop, and you would slow down. The problem right now is that there's a good long stretch with no speed control for people to get up ahead of speed, and it's because there's no stop at Asheville. So I would just appreciate if some consideration would go into this, or at least to do some kind of traffic study to see how many people actually go through that intersection without stopping. So anyway, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Krug. Mr. Delahanty.
Everyone can hear me. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dan, and everyone else on the board. My name is Ben Delahanty. I live at 295 Russet Road. And I live here along with my wife and two boys who are 8 and 5. And first off, I want to thank everyone for addressing the traffic on Russet Road. With the addition of all the apartments in Hancock Village, as well as apps like Waze directing traffic to our street as a cut through between Independence and the VFW and delivery apps. There has definitely been an uptick in traffic on this road. And the speed is also a concern. I know the speed limit's 20, 25, but I mean, you see cars bombing down Russet Road at all times of the day, night. Even when cars are parked on the side, they just fly down the road. And I have two concerns. The first one was brought up by Steve. It is the intersection of Asheville and Russet Road. I was hoping the town would address this and put in a 4-way stop sign. As was mentioned, there is a 4-way stop sign further up the road at Grassmere and Russet. That is not even an entrance to Hancock Village. So one out of those 4 directions, no one even uses. This is the most major 4-way intersection on Russet Road. There are several instances where I'll see, I mean, daily there could be an accident. You just have to sit out here. People don't stop, or they think that, you know, everything will just, the people just fly by it, and you know, you have kids walking across. It absolutely needs to be a 4-way stop sign, and I don't understand how the intersection of Grassmere and Russet can qualify as a 4-way, but not the intersection of Asheville and Russet. And then the other thing with the speed humps, once this road is paved, it probably will increase the speed. So I'm all for the speed humps. My main thing is I'm hoping this is a draft, and just the location of speed bumps can be looked at. Personally, just because one of the speed humps would be directly underneath a basketball hoop I have outside of my house, where not just my kids, but I mean several kids on this road. We have a kid across the street, 2 kids to our right, 4 more kids down Russet Road will come out and play. Even if it was moved 15, 20 feet, you know, in between 295 and 299 Russet, it would give us enough room just to, you know, do some layups and shoot a ball. So I know this is a rough draft. I just hope that there is input from the residents of Russet Road while this design is done. But definitely, even if there aren't as many speed humps like Steve mentioned, the 4-way stop sign should be addressed. But thank you for taking a look at this road, and that wraps up what I have to say.
Sir, Mr. Jim Carroll, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much, Jim Carroll, 308 Russet Road. I just want to thank the DPW for really putting this together. I had asked the question a couple of years back, you know, when will the road be paved? And I was told after the construction of the Hancock Village. So this is very timely, as promised. So I'm very delighted that we're going to get this paved. I understand other people's concerns about the locations of the speed bumps and all that, and it doesn't really bother me one bit. That's pretty much the speed that I drive anyway, so I'm not really affected going down Beverly or any of those other roads to really you know, change my driving habits. So I appreciate that as well. I just want to reiterate what everybody's saying about Asheville and the traffic coming out from Hancock Village. One thing that I noticed is that this, as you're coming out of Hancock Village, that the stop sign can be you know, pretty much obscured, I think by some trees or things. So I don't think it's something that really is right out there and really totally 100% visible. So that may be something that you know, adds to the effect of people driving through, but they do drive through quite frequently without stopping. Other than that, thank you very much. I appreciate everything that Brookline does for us.
Thank you, sir. John Dunlap, go ahead, please. Mr. Dunlap,
You should be receiving a message to be able to unmute.
You'll have to unmute and turn your camera on if you're comfortable to make your comment. So John Dunlap, I will come back to you. Scott Gladstone, are you there?
Yep. Hi,
Go ahead, please.
great. Thanks very much. Okay, so on the Asheville discussion, if criteria doesn't allow for a four-way stop, which I would be in favor of, like everybody else on here, is there a possibility of putting a speed hump between Hancock Village and Russet Road on that little stretch of Asheville? Just something to slow those cars down, because that's the complaint I'm always getting as a town meeting member from precinct 16, is the folks that are between that intersection, the VFW, people turning right and then just speeding down that part of Russet. So just a suggestion. I don't know if that's possible, but obviously everybody else feels like the best traffic calming would be the four-way stop if at all possible. Speaking more selfishly, I'm at 383 Russet Road, which is almost right at the intersection with Independence. And I have two questions. One is, I think I heard that the configuration of that intersection, particularly the stop line, is not being changed now, because that will be part of a future project. That's question number one, which is fine. That's what I want. I don't want the stop line to be moved back in front of my driveway, because we always have trouble getting out when it's Baker School drop-off time. My other question is curbing. There's a number of sections of Russet Road that does not have curbing, which when the plows come through and they salt, is just makes it almost impossible for us to keep greenery along those strips. So is there and as far as protecting the shade trees, the town shade trees, a lot of the erosion will come into the road because there's no stopgap, because there's no curbing, and it's hard to keep the particularly the new plants healthy because of the erosion and the exposure of roots and that kind of thing. So those are my two questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Just a reminder to please mute if you're not actively speaking. Thank you. John Dunlap, you want to try again? I see you unmuted, Mr. Dunlap.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh, finally, thank you. My name is John Dunlap. I live at 257 Russet Road, between Asheville and the Parkway, and I agree with everyone's comments about Asheville. It's a danger zone. It's an accident waiting to happen. So whatever could be done to mitigate that, I would appreciate it. My second question is probably outside the scope of this meeting, but you talked about repaving the road and working on the sidewalks. As a 40-year resident, I would look forward to having my sidewalk looked at. I was wondering what would be the correct avenue to pursue to find out what the schedule is and where I might be on the list.
Good question. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll try to find out for you, though.
Appreciate it. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Diane and Jim Wilson, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. We are at 311 Russet Road, and I just want to say thank you for taking a look at our street and looking at traffic calming. I will agree with everyone that I'm excited about some traffic calming on the street. And I would really encourage you, as everyone has said, to take a look at Asheville and a potential four-way stop there. I think our kids are older now, but when they were younger, just not having a stop there was always very terrifying, as the cars just sort of really came down very fast. So anything that can, I think the speed humps are going to be great, but if we could get a four-way stop at Asheville, that would be excellent. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Richard Murphy, go ahead, please.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me on. Hey, just some added information. I was jumping on Google Maps and I was looking at Asheville intersection and everything. It's kind of ironic that you have a Brookline police officer monitoring that intersection. And I think it just basically emphasizes the problem there. And then I think Jim Carroll pointed out the fact that the stop signs were kind of difficult to be visible. Asheville is a very much wider road than what Russet Road is, for whatever the reason. And I wasn't sure if maybe tightening the intersection with the curb bump out would be a solution to take a look at. So just want to mention that. Thanks.
Brian, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Are there any other additional public comments at this time?
I had something to address one of them.
You're
if I
up.
may. The gentleman that was asking about sidewalk work on Russet Road. We are doing some panel replacement as part of this work. What is your address, if you would feel comfortable telling me?
That was that was Mr. Dunlap at 257 Russet, I believe.
Correct.
I'm looking at the plans now. Give me just a second.
While you're looking that up, let me turn back to you, Dan Martin, if I might. Can you talk a little bit about the warrants for the four-way stop at Asheville and Russet and how that all worked out?
Sure. The
Please.
METCD does prescribe how we're supposed to use traffic control, and traffic control does include stop signs or yield signs or who has the right of way at an intersection. So the METCD is a federal guidance that's put out. The manual uniform traffic control devices. We're only supposed to be installing traffic control that is METCD compliant. One of the first bullets when you're looking at always stop is it does say you're not supposed to use stop signs for speed control. And I think what we've heard is this is needed for speed control. So that's not a warrant for an always stop. As for compliance, that's not a warrant for an always stop. We can ask the police to look at this area and see if they could do some enforcement to try and curb the infractions. And I don't know the history about the other intersection at Intervale and why that one's an always stop. But having a nearby intersection that's an always stop is also not one of the warrants. It's mainly based on vehicle volumes, crash history, sight lines, and it didn't meet any of those warrants.
History. Like how about
So I imagine what happened is those streets that have the existing ones were installed a long time ago before we sort of had a more I don't know if it's scientific based or whatever, but
Or they might have met a warrant back then too.
Right. And the thing about the MUTCD, which is, I'll be very honest, it's not my favorite book. It is a requirement for the town to utilize in order to receive state funding for roads and bridges. So we are kind of stuck with it. Now, with that said, Dan, can we look at tightening up that curve, that the intersection at Asheville?
Yeah, I don't want to promise it, but I will ask Environmental Partners that's doing this design to see if it's possible to tighten it up there and if there's any drainage impacts. So it's something we can look at, and it's not a change in regulation, so I don't think it's something you need to vote on.
Well, clearly the neighborhood wants to see something done out there, and I think we should try to do whatever we can to slow down traffic in general.
Yeah, and I'll definitely go out there and I'll check the stop sign to make sure the tree is not obstructing its view, or if we need additional sign, or we could also do a pavement marking. Those are fairly effective to write stop on the ground if the signs aren't visible.
Thank you. I'm sure the neighborhood would appreciate that. And then just a couple of the other things that were brought up, I just want to mention them so we don't forget. Drainage, let's not forget drainage. And if there's a water main nearby, let's not hit it. We like to do that in Brookline sometimes. So
yeah,
let's not
we do check with the water department to make sure they don't have any planned work, so we're not picking it up more than once. So that is part of our normal procedure. And there was a question about the curbing.
Yes.
We can't add curbing because of the trees. There's a lot of trees in this road and the roots are right up against the road. But we are planning to add berm, so that will help direct the water and also protect when the plowing's out there. So we're going to be adding a hot mix berm.
And I guess the only other question I heard was about the stop line at Independence and Russet, which we mentioned at the beginning. It is currently outside the scope of this, but will be addressed at a future project within the next year or two, we hope.
Yep.
Okay, I think that was all the questions I heard, and I see some more hands. I'm going to go to Kevin Johnson. We haven't heard from you yet. Kevin, go ahead, please.
Hey, how you doing? Kevin Johnson, live at 245 Russet. I echo a lot of the same thoughts as my neighbors and concerns. One thing that I'd like to just bring attention to is just given the width of Asheville, and yes, it is a speed problem, but I think it is also just a sheer volume of cars. Is there any way to kind of filter cars more down Asheville than Russet, either via one-way streets, do not enters, maybe restricting access from the VFW side, just given that, it's literally twice the width as Russet, and then Russet is also filled with, lots of construction vehicles, cars parked on both sides of the street. So it's just one suggestion that I'd like to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Ms. Jonas, you're back for more. Let's, we'd love to hear from you again, please.
Sorry, well,
Don't be sorry.
I was going to provide some history for the stop sign on Grassmere and Russet, which is, I had actually gotten that put in about 30 years ago. And it's funny how times change, because at the time, there were people driving from Thornton onto Russet. But when we came before the Transportation Board, we were told, well, it doesn't qualify. However, you as the neighbors want it, so we'll give it to you. So that was the background there. But I do want to mention that although it does slow a lot of people down, there's a lot of people that will go right through it, especially at night. So I actually think Scott's idea of a speed bump on Asheville would be the most effective, because it forces you to slow down. So that was just historical and supporting Scott's view. And the final other thing was with the main, the water main. The question wasn't whether they're going to do work on it, but what the state of the water main is, if it looks like it could be breaking imminently.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Mr. Carroll. You're
I
muted,
was just
sir.
going to follow up on the water main myself, because I had heard the question asked by Alyssa and I hadn't heard the answer. So I was just going to check on that. So do you have an answer about the water
It
main?
is,
Any
I do
plans?
not, that is well beyond the scope of any of my knowledge.
Yeah.
But we've asked the staff to look at it, and obviously, as they're digging, let the contractors know if it looks like it's going to not work, we should do an emergency repair, obviously. So, let me pass that along to staff, and I think that's par for the course. At least I'd like to hope that's par for the course.
So in terms of the sidewalks, are you planning on replacing all of the sidewalks, or just as needed?
Yeah,
It's-
certain panels. And I was able to find that there is a panel being replaced right in front of 257. As are several others along Russet Road.
Okay, so it's just random broken panels. Okay,
That's
thank you, Amy.
Good job, Amy. Look at you. On the fly. Okay. Any final comments, questions, concerns from the public before we turn back to the Transportation Board for an internal discussion? Mr. Delahanty.
Hi, just going back to the stop signs on Asheville. if for whatever reason, even though everyone on Russet Road does think that there should be a four-way stop sign, I know on South Street, there's a mini rotary as a traffic calming measure. Would that ever be possible to put at that intersection if for whatever reason, a four-way stop sign is not feasible? I'll bring that up and just let you guys discuss it, but that intersection is dangerous. And if we have to wait for a child to get hit by a car or someone to get T-boned to finally get stop signs or have that intersection addressed, I feel like that's just a town liability issue because it's been addressed. And right now, nothing is getting done. So I'll let you guys discuss it, but that would be another possibility of if we cannot have four-way stop signs, we could at least get the traffic calming mini rotary that is seen on South Street in our neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Transportation Board, time for us to talk. So anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Wendy, go ahead, please.
I guess I'm just wondering with the four-way stop, I understand that the traffic volumes aren't enough, but a lot of people have mentioned pedestrians. So is pedestrian car conflicts sufficient to warrant a four-way stop?
I think areas that generate a lot of pedestrians could qualify. I don't think this area is one of them, and the volume of the traffic is rather low. I think the ADT on this road is 400 cars for the whole day.
And you've done pedestrian counts or?
I think
it's low.
the pedestrian counts are fairly low out here. Let me see if I have that.
So Dan, let me ask you to confirm this. So I'm looking at the design right now. So as presented at Asheville, you're putting in the 4 crosswalks and 12-inch stop line on both sides of Asheville, on either side of Russet. Is that accurate?
That's correct. So it's going to look a lot. It's going to be more pronounced now, and we're also adding the speed humps 100 feet on the approaches to Asheville and Russet, which will also slow down cars. So I think all these improvements will have a big difference, and
I agree.
we can always revisit it in the future as well.
Yeah, just have the I mean, if the consultants can just look at tightening up the curb there, I think that would make a big difference too.
And I just pulled it up, so it looks like in the morning peak hour, there is about 19 pedestrians that crossed Asheville Road, and a similar, let's see, 17 that crashed that. Oops, sorry, that was the wrong intersection. Russet at Asheville in the morning. Oh, a little bit lower. So 2 pedestrians crossed Russet and 17 crossed Asheville in the morning. And then in the evening, it's a similar count. So it's under 20 pedestrians that are crossing there.
Okay.
It's a fairly low volume.
Understood. Hold on, Miss Delahanty. I see you, but we're talking amongst ourselves at the moment.
Yeah.
Jonathan, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
No.
No. Okay. I don't want to get into a debate here. So, Miss Delahanty, please make your comment.
Yeah, hi. I'm just questioning where exactly the numbers are from. I'm a teacher at Baker School. My kids go there. So I'm well aware of what it looks like on Russet Road in the morning. And there are tons of children and families who are crossing Asheville in order to head toward Baker School. And especially now as more units have opened in Hancock Village, that has increased the number of people coming. So I just have a hard time wrapping my head around 2 to 10 people crossing the street there in the morning. It just doesn't seem accurate for the hordes of people I see walking to school every day, let alone walking back to school. A lot of times not attended with parents either. So I don't know, the numbers to me seem questionable.
Thank you. And thank you for being a teacher.
You're welcome.
Mr. Dunlap, is your hand up for a third time? Or is that
Yes,
from
I am
before?
here. I just wanted to concur with the traffic flow. I think it's higher than that. And my question is, who conducted the survey? Was it the town or was it Chestnut Hill Realty as part of the Hancock Village? Because when Hancock did it for their permitting for Hancock Village, they conducted their study on a Monday holiday, which would skew the numbers considerably.
Okay, understood. I don't know. Dan, do we know the methodology behind the study?
Yeah, the count was done as part of the monitoring study for Chestnut Hill Realty. I mean, I'm not sure about how many kids are walking from this spot, but if they're coming from the new development, it's likely they wouldn't be crossing at this intersection. They'd already be going up, coming out of Asheville.
So the number of pedestrians crossing is really beside the point right now. What we're trying to figure out is, does this intersection meet the warrants under the federal guidelines that we are required to abide by in order to receive millions and millions of dollars in state and federal funds every year? The engineers that the town employs are telling us the answer is no. And we're questioning that. We're trying to make sure that that's correct. But I'm not hearing hugely compelling arguments that the warrants for a four-way stop would be met at this intersection. And again, looking at the design with the four-way zebra crossing, the new painted stop lines, not to mention the four major speed humps, which I would love to have on my street, by the way, on Russet, I think you're going to see a major improvement out here. And okay, maybe a four-way stop would be better. I agree. But it doesn't look like we can do that right now under our current regulations. I'm sorry. Now, if we can find a way to tighten up the intersection to slow down the cars even more, if the lines don't work, we will do that. We have asked the staff and the consultants to go out and tighten up the intersection if they possibly can. The number of people crossing is largely irrelevant. We want to make it safe for everybody, no matter how they are accessing through this intersection. Jonathan.
Yeah, I would just ask environmental partners to review the warrants one more time.
Yes.
Just so we're all in agreement.
Let's do that. So Dan and Amy and Sam, can you please ask EP to review the warrants one more time? And if a four-way stop is warranted, put it in.
Thank you.
We would like to
gonna be the
put this
next-
four-way
that's the next
stop in,
sentence.
folks. Trust me, I would love to put a four-way stop there. But I cannot put millions and millions of dollars in state and federal aid at risk to do it. I'm sorry, I just can't. Miss Neer, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. this time.
Sorry, didn't see you there.
No worries. Listening patiently, chiming in. So thanks again for listening, my fellow Russet. Stop is FYI only. I think there was some comment about adding speed humps on Asheville. From my perspective, is that would solve the problem, and everything else that was given would be a bigger solution. Stop. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And again, apologize. My apologies. Stacy Guerin, go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening. I was curious to know why Chestnut Hill Realty did the forgive me, the word is eluding me, but the monitoring of the intersection to count 2 to 17 people, because they kind of have a vested interest not to have that be a busy intersection. Why wasn't an independent agency used?
I don't know. I imagine it had to do with money. Dan, do we know?
It was part of the requirements of the zoning. I don't think they're trying to skew the pedestrian numbers. And just to be clear, the warrant isn't a PED number. It's just the engineering judgment of activity. And one of those things we use to judge is the counts, but that's not the only thing. There's so the exact number isn't going to sway whether it meets a warrant or not.
I think it's also fair to say that, excuse me, ma'am, I think it's fair to say that it wasn't Chestnut Hill Realty sitting out there counting. They would have hired a reputable third-party independent contractor to do it for them, I imagine. But anyway,
Yes,
go ahead,
they
please,
did
ma'am.
They did have a traffic consultant on there.
What would meet the requirements to have a four-way stop put into that intersection?
So the warrants for a four-way stop in the MUTCD. Anyone know off the top of their head?
They are readily available online to anyone who would like to look them up.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but yeah, it's volume based,
And I'm
based on
Googling
traffic
them.
volume, looking at sight lines, making sure people will be able to see the stop in time.
Balance.
What's that?
Wow.
Yeah, the relative volumes of the two streets.
So it looks like
It's
an
116 pages, right? Am I looking at the right thing here?
So it looks like 300 vehicles an hour for 8 hours a day, an average of 300 vehicles per hour for 8 hours a day. Or that's one criteria. Another criteria is 5 or more reported crashes in a 12-month period. And then the other things, as Dan already mentioned, include sight distance or sight lines. If there's not good visibility from one stop to another stop. But the warrant around vehicles is an average of 300 per hour for 8 hours on an average day.
And again, we're going to have environmental partners review all of this to check again if it is warranted. And if it is, we will put in a four-way stop here.
Okay, thank you.
You. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, my comment has nothing, or my comment has nothing to do with the issue at hand. I've just noticed that throughout this meeting, it's been, for me, a significant problem that there's a lot of noise coming in, background noise from people who aren't muted. And Brian, you've asked several times for people who aren't speaking to mute. It doesn't have the effect that it should. My question is, does staff have the ability to mute somebody whose background noise is interfering? I've just been a number of occasions in which it's very difficult for me to follow the speaker because somebody else has got, there's other voices that are chiming in. I don't know that it's been a problem like this before. It seems to me this is the first meeting where it just seems to be a consistent difficulty for me.
Staff is monitoring. We can see who is muted and who is not muted. And yeah, I've experienced some of it as well. I've personally been looking for it, and I'm sure Sam and Dan have as well. I do think at least one of the occasions, it was not that someone was unmuted. I think it was the person talking had background noise in where they were located. That was just getting caught by the microphone.
And yeah, Nancy, we all have been muting people as we go, but unfortunately for this situation, this is the required format by the select board. So.
Okay, well, just
but Nancy,
the rest
you're
of
right.
the meeting, I hope
You're right.
will do their best to please, not have background noise. I mean, if you're speaking, make every effort not to have other people around you who are speaking that interfere with our ability to hear you.
I'll just add, actually, Nancy, you can also mute people. So if you notice people, I've actually muted a few people during this.
Oh, really? I didn't know I could
see
do
them
that.
light up. I hope that's okay, Sam and Amy, but it has it's been really
mute away, honestly.
I just muted you, Wendy. Sorry, couldn't resist. Okay, so where we are at is we have a proposal from staff for 4 speed humps on Russet Road, as well as a request for environmental partners, the independent third party, to review the warrants to see if a 4-way stop is warranted at Asheville, and if it is, to add it to the plan.
And do you want us to look at tightening or curb extension at that intersection as well?
I think you should look at tightening up Asheville. So let's look at all the safety measures we could possibly add to Asheville, safe in the knowledge that I think we can tighten it up at the very least. And I do think the new paint markings will help.
And then I would say in your vote, just understanding that this is a draft and we might shift the speed humps 20 or so feet as the requests have come in. We'll try and work with them.
Thank you. Maybe the kids would like the speed hump there. They could probably dunk with the extra 2 feet. No. Okay. Does anyone have the language in front of them? I seem to have lost it, of course. Anyone know what this vote language is? I'm trying to find it. What is this, 5B? 5B, okay. So the staff requested vote is to approve the Russet Road Transportation and Mobility Plan improvements as presented, and I will amend that by saying, and ask environmental partners, the consultants, to review the warrants for a 4-way stop at Asheville and Russet and include them if it is warranted in their opinion, and also to look at tightening up the curve lines at Russet and Asheville. And I also will note that we are aware that this is a draft plan, and we understand that staff may move the location of the speed humps based on neighborhood feedback and other factors as the plan gets more developed. How's that sound?
Looks good.
I'm glad this is being recorded. Is there a motion to that effect?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Let's call the roll, please.
Wendy,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
and Len.
Do I not get to vote?
Oh, Brian, sorry.
Did I
did
annoy
Len
you that
first.
much, Dan?
Sorry,
Is that...
Brian, not Len.
I'm here too. I'm sorry I'm not on camera, but
Oh,
I am
Shonali.
here. And yes.
Hi, Shonali. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, guys. Sorry I'm late.
So Shonali's a yes and I'm a yes. So it's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing this get put in place. We're going to move on to 5C, discussion and action on altering the traffic rules and regulations to Monmouth Street and Monmouth Court. Permit parking only, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., Monday to Friday, 7:20 p.m. That doesn't make any sense. So someone's going to have to explain this one to me.
Yep. this one's
7:20
mine.
PM is the time that the agenda item is supposed to have started.
I'm losing my mind. Thank you. Sorry about that. Well, we're well behind schedule. Anyway, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
That's okay. So there has been much discussion via email with some different residents and some town meeting members and myself about, just kind of parking concerns in the neighborhood. There's definitely some theories as to what the causes of those concerns are, but I think we were able to land on one proposal on how to take action that it seems most residents were in support of, and that was to make it permit parking only for was it 8 to 10?
Yeah, not 7:20.
The wrong memo, sorry. 8 to 11, Monday through Friday. And that was selected not arbitrarily. That was just to match with what the nearby streets regulation is. And to be specific, that would be applied on all of Monmouth Street between Carlton and St. Mary's Street, and on all of Monmouth Court. So I shouldn't have said all of Monmouth Street. On Monmouth Street between Carlton and St. Mary's, that's leaving out a bit that's in front of a church that seems to have some additional regulations attributed to it. No parking during certain times at all, and then all of Monmouth Court.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
Mm-hmm. And that would be
Um,
any kind of permit. I know some people had talked about resident only, but that would be any permit that is held.
Sean Lynn Jones, I saw you here, I thought, a moment ago. I know you brought this up to us just a few months ago. I was wondering if you wanted to say anything about this proposal at this time.
I would, if I could, please.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Good. I'm logging in from London. It's a bit late here, which may mean that I'm even less coherent than usual. But I'm still Sean Lynn Jones, 53 Monmouth Street, and a town meeting member from Precinct 1. And I'll try not to rehash the long story that's included in the agenda packet. I'll just make 3 points. First, as Amy, I think, mentioned, it's important to have a consensus among the neighbors here. I know John Brownstein was on this call. He told me he supported it. I've sent out dozens of emails to neighbors on Monmouth Street and Monmouth Court. I haven't received a single objection. I haven't received too many emails in support either. So it could just be that no one's reading the emails I send, but I don't know of any opposition, and maybe some has been communicated to the board, and maybe some will, come up at this hearing. But I, just hope that there will be an effort to make sure that people are informed and that any objections are hashed out. This does seem like a reasonable approach, but my second point is just to clarify how it would work. Would the permits be issued to current and future holders of resident parking permits and commercial parking permits, or would there be additional categories and other processes that would be used to determine who can obtain a permit and park on Monmouth Street or Monmouth Court? And also, would there be any provision for permits to be issued to caregivers, contractors, or visitors, or any other category beyond the holders of commercial or resident permits? The resident permits meaning people who have permits to park for longer now during the day, longer than 2 hours. So those are the really just questions of clarification, and maybe other people will have additional comments. But I do know my neighbors felt that a flat ban on parking on the 2 streets during those hours would not work, given the situation that many of them have for pickups, drop-offs. They don't have on-site parking in a number of cases. And it would be much more complicated if there were no provision for permit parking. So thank you, especially to the staff and the board for hearing this several times and coming up with this idea for what I hope will be a workable solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, and you are up very late. God love you.
I can answer his questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy, please.
So there would be no changes to the types of permits allowed in general by the town. It's just the same types of permits that are allowed currently to be applied for. Nobody would be granted any new permits as part of this regulation change. It would just be available to any permit holder that is current. Of course, if you don't have a permit, you can still apply for one. All that information is available on our website.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. If folks would like to comment on this item from the public, we would love to hear your comments. I see some hands are popping up, so feel free to use your raise hand function and I will call on you in the order I see you. Mr. John Brownstein, go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm dark. I'm in a car, so apologies. But I'm a resident of 55 Monmouth Street. I'm on the section actually right next to Sean, a grouping of townhouses that don't have deeded parking right in front of their house. So we need that parking in front of our house, especially for day-to-day activities, bring kids, around for school. And by 8 a.m., I witnessed this morning, by 8 a.m., the entire street was flooded with cars from non-residents of the street. Obviously amazing economic activity around us, which is great. But our street is now used as daytime parking for all the commercial sites and all the hospital parking, everything else. So I'm in strong favor, and I've talked to a lot of my neighbors, the Peskins that live across the street and others who I think have sent you emails as well. We are definitely in favor of this solution. I think it would really alleviate the problems of parking that we've been facing. So I really appreciate you guys taking on this issue and hopefully finding a resolution.
Thank you. Dave Monheat.
Hi, how you doing? I appreciate what everybody's dealing with on Monmouth Court. I totally understand. I am at 123 St. Mary's Street. I own Encore Realty right there. And while we don't usually show up for work until about 10 o'clock, I'm just a little concerned that this would affect my agents, that they wouldn't be able to come to work. So I wasn't clear, because I only know about this from the email from Sean, if we were able to get permits, and if not, you know, is there any flexibility in the conversations that have been had in moving the hours from 8 to 10? We're certainly not there at 8. We're not there for Red Sox games. We're not there to sit our car all day and you know, commute downtown. We move every 2 hours. But what I'm afraid of is, you know, the loss in productivity from my team. We've been there for 12, 14 years now. You know, we're part of the community, and I just don't want to lose the ability to park, because while some of us rent few available spots that folks have in the area, there's just not really any other option for us. I'm happy to move any staff meetings to after 11 o'clock to accommodate all of our neighbors. They're lovely people. But you know, I just wanted to get some clarification. Are we able to get permits for that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amy.
I do believe, please, Dan Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe there is a commercial hang tag program in that area and that they would be eligible.
No.
Yep,
Okay,
there is
I-
the same.
Dan Martin.
Yep, there is a St. Mary's commercial district. I don't know if there's a wait list or not for that one though. But it is something they could get, and
So Dave, you're not eligible for these particular permits, but you're eligible for another program that's open to commercial vendors and merchants in the neighborhood. It's called the St. Mary's Commercial Area Parking Program. And basically, you can get hang tags that you can give to your employees to put in their cars that will allow them to park in excess of 2 hours in and around the area. So,
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was aware of that program. We've tried it in the past. The wait list is honestly years. At least last time I checked, we kind of gave up on it.
Oh wow!
So
I didn't know that.
you know, yeah. So you know, I'm just worried about how immediately this goes into effect, and you know, suddenly I can't get anybody to come to work before 11 o'clock, and I might as well just like cut 10% off of our business. You know, there's no one that's showing up. 4 or 5 people are showing up before 11 o'clock. But you know, those are hardworking folks who are just getting kind of their legs chopped out from under them with this.
I might offer that, you know, we've decided on this regulation to be consistent with streets, adjacent streets. There could be other, you know, potential for parking on other streets in the area. Maybe they have to walk a block. Just putting that out there.
I guess this is a bigger question that we need to address. With all of our merchant hang tag programs is the waiting list. So I'd like to discuss this at a future board meeting. How long are the wait lists? Is there anything we can do to try to alleviate that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously, if we have these programs, but people can't access them, it's not very helpful. Nancy, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just want to suggest to you, if your employees don't mind walking 3 or 4 blocks, which it seems to me is a quite reasonable walk, Carlton Street has parking on, you know, from 10 o'clock on, and there's lots of spaces It's where I live. I don't really mind. I have a driveway. I don't really need it. There are spaces available on Carlton Street at 10 o'clock. So your employees could easily park there for at least the first 2 hours and then move.
Thank you, Nancy. Sean, go ahead, please.
On this question of commercial parking permits and their availability from Monmouth Street, I don't know what the numbers are now, but I do know in the past, and I had this conversation with Todd Corain, I was very concerned about the number of commercial permits being given from Monmouth Street, precisely because of the parking concerns that have motivated this discussion. Adding more commercial permits to that, those 2 blocks seemed like a bad idea, since parking was so scarce and residents were complaining already. If we were to have a permit parking program, that might change the math, but I don't know what the numbers are or what the waiting list is. But I just wanted to make that observation that whatever the present count is, it was strongly influenced, I think, by the fact that we had so many people parking there anyway. We didn't want to add to that number. An additional concern that we had on Monmouth Street compared to many other streets in the neighborhood, that there's a much higher density of residences and cars, which contributed to this problem of too many cars and too few parking spaces. As for the other element of this, I'm not sure whether 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. is best, and how different people would feel about that, and how important it is to be consistent. I did hear that 11 a.m. was chosen for consistency's sake, but I'm not sure if there's a clear rationale or not, for that particular time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Does anyone else in the audience like to comment on this item? I don't see any hands jumping up, but we would love to. If you
Hi,
want
my
to
name is
raise your
Terry.
hand, go ahead. Sorry? Did someone unmute? Nope. Okay. So I guess the question for us on the board is 8 to 10 versus 8 to 11, assuming we want to do it. And I don't know if anybody has any strong feelings either way on this particular item, but I would love to hear your comments.
Hi, my name is Terry Keane, and I live on Monmouth Street, 78 Monmouth Street. I just want to add my support for this motion. We've had a really difficult time now for the past year with parking on our street. So I would appreciate consideration from this group for restricting parking in the mornings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jonathan.
I don't see any particular benefit to taking the extra hour. I understand it's consistent with the other streets, but if it's going to cause someone hardship, then I would imagine that 2 hour, it's done in other locations, it's done on the street behind me for 2 hours, and seems to work. So I don't know if there's any evidence saying that 3 hours is more effective than 2 hours.
Seems reasonable to me. Wendy?
I feel like every time we vote on one of these, it is 8 to 10, like 11, actually 8 to 11 seems unusual. Am I wrong about that?
I mean, I read 8 to 10 when I first read it, so that's what I thought it was, but.
And is this a street that do most houses not have driveways on this street?
Sean, do you know the answer to that question?
Hi.
On Monmouth Street, very few houses have driveways on the street. People either have townhouses with no parking on site and off-site parking, somewhere else, not at their houses, or they have parking behind in a few cases. also in Monmouth Court, you have a fairly large condo building in addition to the townhouses, most of which have the same characteristics as the ones on Monmouth Street. And people who live in those condos have limited on-site parking. And they also, if they have cars, they're parking them off-site and having to pull up from time to time, for whatever reason. But they certainly have limited driveway space and parking space for both the condo building and the most of the single-family townhouses too.
Thanks, Sean.
This is Doug. I live on Monmouth Street, 78, since for about the last 40 years, and the parking has gotten just impossible. We had plumbers come and contractors, and a lot of it is that the building that's going up in Kenmore Square, the building that is going over near Landmark, the contractors that build there can come at 7 in the morning and they can get a ticket or two at $45, and it's better than their designated parking, which is $60 a day over Beth Israel Deaconess. So it's just, there are days where there's no parking at all on the street. So anything you all can do, and Sean, thank you so much for leading this effort, anything you can do to not let these people kind of park all day here. And I think the 8 to 11, the 8 to 10 will help achieve that. So your help on this is greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave Monheat, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I just, I'm hearing some people agreeing that to 10 o'clock seems reasonable, and that would be great for us. I mean, we're not looking to show up at 7 a.m. and park vans. We're not trying to do anything that really is a hindrance to our neighbors. We just need to work that 1 hour from 10 o'clock would be great to us, because we're not really working with clients before then anyway. So if that could be the consideration, I think that would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you. So let's see if we can get through this item here. Processing request, please wait. Okay, that was weird on my screen. Does anyone have a strong feeling either way about 8 to 10 versus 8 to 11? Okay, so in that case, why don't we go 8 to 10 and see if we can help this small business out. And if there's a problem in the future, we can always push it back to 8 to 11 pretty easily. So let me see if I can find the language. So is there a motion to alter the traffic rules and regulations on Monmouth Street between Carlton Street and St. Mary's Street and on Monmouth Court to be permit parking only 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday?
So move.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Amy, why don't you call the roll? And don't forget, Shanali's here.
Wendy,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
Shanali,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes. That is unanimous. Sean, thank you. You can go to bed now. Enjoy the rest of your trip. And we will get this expedited as quickly as possible. Okay, we are 7:40. Good Lord, we're well behind schedule. So hopefully we can move through some of these appointments quickly. 5D is a discussion and action on the appointment to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Who's gonna take that one for us? Sam, is that you?
Yes, sir. So tonight we have back-to-back discussions. First, we'll be discussing the Bicycle Advisory Committee. So everyone has been provided with the memo. that highlights the two individuals. One is up for appointment and the other is up for reappointment. So we're really happy to hear that Anthony has seeked out being reappointed to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Anthony has served on the board for a number of years now, and he is looking to be reappointed to a second term. And then I'm also excited that Toby Silman, who has been a very vocal advocate and is joining us tonight for bicycle safety in Brookline, was selected by or nominated by the Bicycle Advisory Committee to serve a term. I have no history on if a high school student has ever served on a advisory committee for Brookline, but I'm just going to go forth and say that this is the first high school student to serve on the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and we're really happy to have Toby here. So if there are any questions, happy to take them, but I really hope that the board will join in appointing these two wonderful bike advocates to the Bicycle Advisory Committee.
Mr. Silman, you want to say anything before we appoint you officially?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the members of the Bike Advisory Committee and Mr. Sam Downs for helping to get me to this moment today. I've spent the past 9 months getting to know the members of the committee, and we've already been able to work together well on issues relating to bike safety and schools, and I look forward to continuing that as a member of the Bike Advisory Committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Toby. You do still remain my second favorite BHS student. I'm sorry, my daughter is actually are my third favorite because I have two daughters there now. Anyone have any questions? Is there any public comment on this item? If not, is there a motion to appoint Toby Silman and reappoint Anthony Ishak to the Bicycle Advisory Committee for a term starting immediately and expiring on October 1, 2027?
So moved.
I'll take that as a movement and a second. Sam, you want to call the roll, please?
Len?
Yes. Sorry.
Jonathan?
I thought you said Brian. I thought you said Brian. Sorry.
I'll get to you, Brian. You're gonna be last. Len with a yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Shanali?
Yes.
Congrats, Shanali. Brian?
Yes.
6-0.
Okay.
Congratulations, Toby.
Well done, Toby. And thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Okay,
so
we're going
much,
to move
everyone.
on. Thank you. We're going to move on to the Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Trying to catch up on a little time here.
Yes, sir. Exactly. So, David, I see you've joined us. Would you like to say anything before we talk about this?
Nothing at length. I submitted my recommendations that we reappoint both Jesse Hefner and Anita Johnson, who've both been serving Jesse for 1 year, Anita for, I think it's been about 4 or 5 years. Report them for a new 3-year terms. And that will bring us to only one other vacancy, which we'll be working to fill over the next month or so.
Great. Sam?
Thank you to David for submitting these two very well-written paragraphs about the contribution each member has made. And as he said, I'm excited to hear that they will soon fill out their committee. The recommendation is that the Transportation Board vote to reappoint Anita Johnson and Jesse Hefner to the Pedestrian Advisory Committee for a term expiring October 1 of 2027.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you,
Thank
Shanali.
you. Wendy?
Sam, call the roll.
Yes.
Shanali?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And Brian?
Yes, it is unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to 5F, discussion on the Old Lincoln School staff on-street parking permits. Who's got this one, folks?
Thanks, Brian. So this is an update for the Old Lincoln School Parking Permit Program. As you recall, at our May meeting, I came to you for the permit parking program. Pierce is under construction, and teachers and students are using that space now at Old Lincoln School. And for parking, the teacher permit parking program was voted to be reactivated. And the board had asked that staff return with an update and some information on utilization. So the program, teachers began using the permits in August. Staff had done drive-bys of the area and in general seen space available on almost all the streets except for maybe one that reopened shortly after, and normally closer to High Street. There was a formal observation done on October 8th, counting the cars and doing utilization rates. In general, the area has a 62% utilization rate. We haven't received any complaints, and neither has a school department, to the best of our knowledge. And then since the notices went out, I think we've had one person talk about difficulty finding a space on Boylston Street, and then we received another public comment in your public comment packet, just that they haven't been impacted with the permit parking program, and they're in favor of the permits. And then we do have Karen King from the school department here if you have any questions for the school department as well.
So it sounds like it's working. There's a few hiccups here and there, but for the most part, it's working.
Yep, I think
Anybody
it's
have
working well. No main issues.
Anybody have any questions for Dan or Miss King?
No, I'll just say that I live on Cameron Street right across part of this program, and I haven't really noticed much of a difference at all. So it's been great.
Okay, thanks, Shanali. Okay, we will accept that report. Thank you, Dan. And there's no action associated with this item, so we'll move on to discussion on roadway management, maintenance, and preservation policy and changes to the complete streets policy and sidewalk ramp construction policy. That's a mouthful. Commissioner, thank you for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Erin Chute, Commissioner of Public Works. And what I'm doing this evening is I'm just introducing what these three documents are, why they're before you, and then we can have an in-depth conversation at the next meeting. So I wanted to explain what they are and then give you time to review them before we go into sort of a deeper Q&A. So since I've been commissioner, my team and I have been grappling with the great challenge that the town has of significantly deteriorating roadway conditions. The management of these assets in a state of good repair is the responsibility of the Department of Public Works, and specifically the Engineering and Transportation Division. And in order to do our job to maintain the condition of the existing network of roads, and then to simultaneously prioritize meaningful changes to the geometry, design, and renovation of the right-of-way for Vision Zero, traffic calming, multimodal accommodation, sidewalk repair, we are proposing to uncouple these processes so that each can move forward based upon the specific priorities in each category, while also having the all-encompassing complete street policy and complete streets priority projects that will move forward based upon priorities established by the Transportation Board and staff. So this past year, the Select Board and Town Meeting, they've stated that improving the condition of the roadway is a top priority for the town. And I received direction specifically from the Select Board to amend the processes for roadway maintenance and rehabilitation so that we could maximize the efficiency in which we're able to maintain the roads. So with that, there's a new policy for you to take a look at. It's the Roadway Asset Management, Maintenance, and Preservation Policy. And this looks at the pavement condition assessment and inventory. And so the town will prioritize our work based upon the cost benefit value to the town of each road that we're renovating and the types of treatment that we'll utilize to maintain that road in the best condition possible, whether it's crack sealing or bonded wearing course or mill and overlay. And this is the methodology that we use now. The situation, though, is that because the policies are coupled, we use this policy to determine which roads to renovate, and then we may be prioritizing sidewalk work and other work in areas where that isn't the town's priority, but because the pavement condition is a certain condition and following our formula, we're dedicating certain resources to other areas and interventions where it's not really in the best interest of the town. So I think this policy sort of sets forth what our asset management program is for the roads. And with those, with each of those projects, when we're doing the rehabilitation, we'll also be ensuring that the crosswalks are complying with federal ADA requirements. The update to the sidewalk and ramp construction policy. With this, we'll be looking at our conditions assessment that we have for sidewalks and ramps, and we will decide where we are expending our sidewalk maintenance dollars based upon that conditions assessment, based upon input from the Pedestrian Advisory Committee and the Commission for Disabilities and our work orders. And so we'll be able to really look at conditions and focus on where the greatest needs are and the areas that really need the investment. And then updating the complete streets policy. When you look at this, you'll see that what we're looking for is a list of complete streets priority projects that the Transportation Board and staff will put together, and that those will become dedicated projects in the CIP that we will work on in a coordinated effort to try to continue our work improving multimodal access throughout the town. The intent is to start consideration on arterial roads that have greater than 6,000 ADT and a width of at least 48 feet as the starting point for kind of those priority roads. So look at all of those, and we have a full list of what those are in the town. Frankly, you'll see that many of those we have already been able to address, or they're in the works. And then we can build off of that priority list from there. So it isn't precluding any roads, but really want to start with those for analysis. And so really the intent here is for us to be more efficient with our maintenance, to be more directed and I think impactful in terms of where we're spending the town's dollars as it relates to safety, Vision Zero, sidewalks, complete streets, bike accommodations, and not just tying all of those back to our pavement condition index. So that's what we're looking for. That's what the select board's looking for. The next step would be for us to have a discussion at the next meeting. All of the board and frankly the public, if the public is interested as well, feel free to email me any comments, suggestions, track changes that you may have, and then we can talk about it at the next meeting. And after the transportation board, it will go to the select board. So that's what I have for you. So that's what it is. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be more efficient and effective for the town.
So thank you, Commissioner, and I want to just note that I'm in wholehearted agreement with this. I think this board has seen through some of the projects that we've worked on recently, where sort of our policies get in the way of doing the smart thing, we don't always need to rebuild every single aspect of a road, especially if the neighborhood doesn't want it. We had that sidewalk on that street that led to a park. We had a crosswalk in the middle of another street that it just didn't make sense. Our policy said we had to do it, and so we have to go through the process. So I think what the commissioner is suggesting here is a rationalization and really a prioritization and using our resources more wisely, focusing on the major roads that need attention. I think we all can agree that there are streets and roads in town that need to get redone, and this will allow us to focus our resources there. So we're not going to take any action on these tonight, as the commissioner said. We will take them up probably in November, and we'll do our best to have a public discussion about it then. But I wanted to thank the commissioner for rewriting these lengthy policy documents. Thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. David, go ahead.
Thank you. As the commissioner knows, I've been sort of tied up the last few days, so I didn't have a chance to really look some of this over until today. So I just had one quick comment on with regard to the sidewalk and ramp. The title of that document includes the word maintenance. But maybe in the quick reading I was able to do this afternoon, I just missed it. I don't see repair included. What I see is replacing sections of sidewalk. But in fact, as noted in the asset management document, there's a lot of repair that goes on. The grinding, the spot fixes when there's broken sidewalk. And so there are steps in between, leaving it alone and fully replacing it. And I was surprised that didn't get acknowledged in the sidewalk ramp construction replacement and maintenance policy. So, I mean, maybe there's a reason for it not being there, but that surprised me. So I wanted to just question that.
Sure, David. I think it's a good question. I think part of it is that those aspects, the sort of day-to-day maintenance, lie outside the purview of the transportation board. That's within the purview of the commissioner, and it's part of the day job that she does so well.
But this is a DPW document saying how DPW is going to operate. And so to me, as a DPW operating document, it should recognize that repair function. That's all.
No, that's fair point.
Yeah, thank you. Well,
yeah.
The maintenance is supposed to be all encompassing, David. So I think I'll just take another look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? So our homework is to read through these and be prepared to discuss them at length at our next meeting. Thank you, Commissioner. We have one more item, which you're welcome to stay for, which is a discussion and possible vote on changes to the traffic calming policy.
I will. Thank you.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't.
Oh, I did see one hand just pop up. I don't know if it was for traffic calming. Brian, did you want to?
Sure. Mr. Walpowitz, would you like, is this on this item or traffic calming, or both?
It's on traffic calming. I've just been waiting a while, so I got excited.
Well, you'll be first in line when we get there, sir.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. We appreciate your sticking around. All right, who has this item?
That would be me. I will share my screen here. Can you guys see that?
Sure can.
All right, get those out of there. So this is an proposed update to the traffic calming policy, which we have talked about before at T-Board back in April. And so I am going to kind of run through what was proposed back then, which more or less hasn't changed too much, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page. And while this is involved in a lot of what the commissioner was just talking about, this policy is written in a way such that the policy itself can stand on its own and is meant to be integrated into the other policies. So just a little bit of history quickly and context. We do currently have a traffic calming policy. It was originally written in 2012, updated again in 2018. It established very, with a lot of detail, process for identifying traffic calming projects and funding them, designing and funding them. To date, about 43 projects have received some kind of treatment through this process. As I said, the policy is incredibly detailed as to what needs to take place in order to have a traffic calming project become implemented. This is just a quick summary of it, but you can see a lot is going on for public meetings is what we count. It's very time consuming for staff to do that. And as the years have gone by, traffic calming, just as an expressed want and desire for from the community, has just really grown in popularity, and a lot of people want to see that happen on their neighborhood streets or around their schools and various places. And it's gotten to the point where staff just can't follow this process and get through the backlog by following this process. So the goals of the new policy are to streamline the workflow to process the request faster and handle the backlog that's been growing and growing over the last several years. And then also to, going into the future, once we've handled all of the requests in the backlog, to identify and prioritize streets based on need. So rather than being completely based on a request from the community, we want to look at data that's actually supporting the need. That doesn't mean we won't accept requests. We will, and that'll still be counted, but we do want to make our decisions based on data as much as possible. Another way to kind of streamline things is to reduce the cost of design and construction by focusing on things like speed humps or similar treatments that are relatively quick build and don't involve a lot of design. That will cut back on the cost and the time to process. And then also just kind of dialing back the community engagement process, we think would be more right-sized to this kind of streamlined approach, because the current policy doesn't really, it gives some examples of tools, of treatments to use, but it leaves it pretty wide open. And there's just, there's so much complexity to the plans that have come out of it, that a lot of community meetings are needed to distill what the plan actually looks like. But if we're focusing on just a small number of tools that we can do quickly, and that look more or less the same from one project to the next, we feel like we can accomplish that with many fewer meetings. So to kind of get into a few of those goals a little deeper, streamlining workflow, we want to do that taking advantage of some data that either wasn't available when the policy was originally written, or just wasn't available to us in the same way that it is now. So rather than focusing on collecting new data each time, we have a lot of data that is just housed with the town, including in our GIS system, but also there's a lot of services that that collect kind of big data, and those data sets are becoming more and more useful as time goes on. And so the proposed policy is written in such a way that we're kind of leaving it open to be able to use data sets as they improve in the industry and as they change. I mentioned a need-based prioritization system. That's definitely a part of it. Again, just not relying on someone to make a request, but actually looking at, excuse me, data and what's going on the ground. But also that helps to improve equity. There might be people who don't have time or the knowledge or whatever to make a request, but that still have a street that where traffic calming is needed. So that helps balance things out there. And we're also using different data sets to kind of identify areas where vulnerable road users such as bicyclists and pedestrians and transit users are most likely to be. And then using these kind of quick build solutions, I'm just showing a couple here. On the right is speed humps that we installed on Beverly Road last year, I guess it was. And that will look pretty much like what we were talking about earlier today on Russet Road. Will look pretty much like that with a few more signs. This was just not in its completed state, but close to the completed state. And then on the left here is a picture actually from Denver. You know, this is kind of like a quick build version of a bump out, more or less, changing the geometry of the street in a kind of quick build way to slow down turns, to you know, make pedestrians more visible who are waiting to cross in a crosswalk. There's a lot that can be done with these kind of quick build materials. And the best thing about these is that they do not tend to have any impacts on drainage, which solves design time and money. So the community engagement part is the part that we didn't really get into last time. So I'm going to spend a little more time on that. 4 meetings is what's prescribed right now in the current policy. And, you know, that seemed to make sense for this very, you know, drawn out process, but for a streamlined process, as I say, with, you know, only a handful of different types of solutions that we're trying to propose, and data sets that already exist, and analysis that we can really do on a town-wide scope, which I'll show you more about in a second. We do feel that one public hearing as an agenda item at a transportation board meeting should be enough to go through the plan to make sure people understand what is proposed and to have that plan approved in most cases. We did want to have an option in there for a neighborhood meeting to be added to the process in the case of, you know, some kind of special case that's the plan where the plan is more complex or something else that's unforeseen. But that would be at the discretion of the Director of Engineering and Transportation. So this is just kind of a little bit of the workflow of how things would function under this new policy. We would use all these different data sets, again, that we have at our fingertips right now to identify eligible streets. And when I say eligible, what I mean is one of the main factors we'd be looking at when we do this kind of town-wide analysis is the functional classification, which is you know, a resource that we get from Mass DOT based on federal standards, basically like the size, more or less the size of the street. You know, there's arterials that are very large streets with large amounts of, sometimes multiple lanes, large amounts of traffic, higher speeds. Those are not really the types of streets that we'd be looking at for this type of program. We'd be looking at on the other end of the spectrum, more like local streets. I'll show you a map of kind of what I'm talking about in just a minute. So once we've identified which streets are even eligible for these types of traffic calming treatments, we would then use additional data to prioritize streets and street segments based on the need as demonstrated by the data, and also any requests that have come in, whether it's a traffic calming request that's been officially sent in already, or it's, you know, some other related concern. Then we would look at those high priority streets and street segments, and we would try to form, as you know, as necessary, clusters, more or less. I'll show you again what that means in just a second. But essentially, it's you know, taking a look at the network of streets around a neighborhood and saying, okay, if we have this one street that is demonstrating a clear need, there's a request here. If we put speed humps on this street, people are just going to go around it to the adjacent street, and that's going to just shift traffic over. So that's not what we want to do. We want to do this in kind of a more comprehensive manner and do the whole kind of cluster around that neighborhood. So to keep people from doing, you know, from cutting through on adjacent streets. And then once staff have developed this plan, we would, much like what we did say with Russet Road, kind of conceptual plan, don't need a full design really for most of this stuff anyways, but we would come to the board, just like we did today with Russet Road, discuss what we're proposing, with the understanding that, you know, a speed hump or something could be moved slightly depending on field conditions and impact input from the community. So this is a map I just wanted to show you that is showing all the different roadway classifications in the town. I know that the legend is hard to read, but really just what I want you to see here is are the blue and purple lines. Those are, the blue is local streets, classified as local, and the purple are collectors. That's kind of like the next step up from local. These are really the streets that we'd be talking about for this program. We're not talking about Boylston, which of course is a state-owned facility anyways, but we're not talking about these major streets with large amounts of traffic. We're talking about lower traffic streets, but that still are seeing increased amounts of cut through traffic due to ways, due to a lot of other reasons. And those are where we're really getting these types of requests, and that is where these types of treatments are most appropriate. So you can see just by this map that we're covering basically the entire town in one way or another as far as eligibility is concerned. And this is just an example of a cluster that I was talking about. The lines in red here are existing requests that we have in our list. Sometimes it's just a small segment that's been requested, but then we say, okay, well, somebody requested this segment of Dean Road, but why not extend add into the request the rest of Dean Road in the purple. So these purple parts are additional segments that we added in for traffic calming so that we can do this as one project in a comprehensive way. I believe that is my last slide. I can certainly take some questions or hear some thoughts.
Thanks. Thanks, Amy. No, I appreciate it. And again, this is something that that I know a lot of us have talked about, the need to streamline and get more efficient with the resources that we have. We need to deliver more and show more results. But I will stop talking. Nancy, go ahead, please.
Sure. So I remember the last time we discussed it, I had some questions and concerns about getting the right level of public participation. And I've a question here in terms of the section on implementation and the public process. So you're proposing essentially one hearing, although if at that hearing issues arise, there might be a neighborhood meeting that would follow where the neighbors could give more detailed feedback, and that would be at the option of the engineering and transportation director. It also suggests that there's a possibility of a neighborhood meeting prior to the public hearing. So my question is, how would the neighbors learn about the concept design in time to make a request for a neighborhood meeting prior to the transportation board? And included in that is a concern that the notice they get with the details of what the concept design is may come pretty late in terms of neighbors fully understanding what you're proposing to do, and whether they're going to learn about it in time, something goes on the agenda, but then the memo that really explains it doesn't necessarily come out until days, maybe a week, but often just days prior to the meeting. People who have concerns may not be able to attend the meeting. Yes, they can send in comments, but a lot of the times they have questions. And it may not be difficult for them to get their questions answered in time for them to then formulate comments. So that's what I'd like to hear a little bit more about, how neighbors, how those affected by these projects can learn about them sufficiently in advance that they can provide meaningful feedback and be able to, actually, communicate their concerns to the staff.
Certainly. Yeah, I think that would be something we would try to tackle through some proactive engagement with the community in general about what traffic calming is, for example, and defining what we are trying to do, the types of solutions we are trying to use as part of this policy. We want it to be as transparent as possible, both what we're trying to do in general and specifically. And I think that could take a lot of different forms. I think one form that would be quite useful that the city of Boston has done, and I think some others, is more or less just create a map of where the requests are and where the eligible streets are. I mentioned that we can do some of this analysis all together because we have the data that's already mapped out for the whole town-wide, so we can find what streets are at least preliminarily eligible, and share that on our website. We could even share the clusters that we've identified. So I think before a street comes to is selected, we would basically be showing that there's potential project in different areas using maps and other resources that we can put on our website.
But that doesn't really address the concept that you come up with.
True, but I think
the ability of the neighborhood to comment on the specifics of the concept.
True, but I think that's why we were trying to keep the scope of solutions to just a small number of different types of solutions. Speed humps, for example, I think would be a major component of this. I didn't want to limit it to just speed humps because there may be other things that are appropriate, but I think that will be probably one of our first and most heavily used tools. So if we have an explainer about what speed humps are, why they're preferred by the town in a lot of instances on our website, and that's something that we promote through social media and other channels, then I think that would help a lot and answer a lot of those questions. But we could do that with some of the other solutions that we're proposing as well, so people know what those things are.
If I may, I think tonight was a really good example of how the process might look. With Russet Road, we had what felt like really good turnout from the community, and we heard what they were looking for, and a commitment to look into making some of the modifications or requests of those residents. Which is not to say that that's how it has to look, but if the residents are really concerned with one intersection on the street, we're committed to looking or working with the consultant to identify if we can make modifications to that intersection. And we might not be able to answer all those questions on the spot. But I think that tonight was a good example of how getting the feedback and making minor shifts in the location of speed humps, while also maintaining a short menu, as Amy is saying, in terms of what treatments we would use. And then the other thing I'd like to say is just I know the comment specifically about the time to review documents. I think these streets, when we come up with the list of traffic calming streets, it would not follow a similar timeline to when we're trying to produce memos for transportation board meetings. These would be streets that we would be working on, well in advance of a T-board meeting. It wouldn't be we meet with Brian the first week of the month, we identify what we're going to talk about that month, we come up with a street that month and then produce a memo for it and have a very short time frame. This would be planned out well in advance. And so we wouldn't be in a situation bringing a road to the board for traffic calming, having just notified the residents, less than a week or a week before the meeting.
So
Nancy,
The
Sorry.
ideal then would be to get notice to the abutters with a description of the concept well in advance of the meeting, so they would have time. If they want to request a neighborhood meeting before then, they would have time to do that. That's fine. That's really all all that I was looking for.
I mean, if Dan or Amy or the commissioner, like, if I'm misspeaking, please tell me, but I think that like we would not be identifying a street the same month that we were trying to bring it before the board. Like this would just allow us to start a different process, more streamlined process.
Yeah, no, I think that's just right. Like like I said, we would be able to do a lot of this analysis townwide, and we would already have a priority list from this townwide analysis, more or less. And things could shift, with as new requests come in and things like that. Or, we end up doing traffic calming on a project as part of mitigation for development, or something like that, some other kind of overlap. But we would have a website that's regularly updated with the results of these analysis. And so we would know kind of more or less what order we would want to do these streets or clusters in. And yeah, we could, so that we could provide like kind of advance notice to the community that, okay, we're shooting for putting this on the April Transportation Board agenda. Here's what we're thinking. We might not have the concept ready yet, but we would have, a pretty good idea of like what tools we would be proposing.
But we could have draft concepts
we could.
too. Yeah.
We could.
So how about this? So Nancy, what if we don't take a vote tonight? And can you work with the staff and the team to make sure that the outreach meets your requirements? And we'll take it up at our next meeting?
Well, I don't know that that's really necessary. I'm okay with the language that's in there.
Okay.
As long as there's an understanding, of the process. I don't know that we need to spell it out, in detail, but as long as, I understand how you envision the process to work. This says that the neighbors will have an opportunity to request a neighborhood meeting before the Transportation Board meeting. So as long as it's understood that the plan is to give them notice sufficiently in advance, that's good enough for me.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wendy, we're gonna get Mr. Walpowitz. I know I promised I get to you. We're gonna do the board first, and you'll be the first in public comment. Wendy, go ahead, please.
Thanks. I just wanted to follow up on Nancy's comments. I mean, we do get a lot of people who show up even when things are announced saying, I wasn't personally called and told about this. So I just would suggest that the outreach kind of go beyond what we currently do, if possible. I know you're already talking about doing it further in advance, so that's great. But just, I don't know if there's a way to get it out there sooner. And also, like happened tonight where somebody showed up and said, I put in a street calming request, where is it in the queue? I don't know if there's a way to also kind of just have it be public where the order of things, like this queue and this prioritization, so people have a sense of when their projects are coming up. Or maybe that's opening a can of worms, but it just seems like we would get less complaints about not being informed if we had more ways for people to kind of know when their project of interest is, is coming up in the queue.
Very good point. And I think that's one of the goals of this whole approach, is to make it more transparent and sort of lay it out. Okay, Mr. Walpowitz, thank you for your patience. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I first of all, it's very late. I'm going to keep it short. I will just say, please don't forget that we know we're on the queue. We're in 27th. Your website says 1 to 2 per year. That means I'm waiting 13 to 27 years to get a speed bump on a very small street. I just don't think that outweighs that just totally long delay should be the priority, not such a concern about when the neighbors know or don't know. I just strongly recommend that you just remember that that's a long time to wait. I'd also like to say that limiting to a certain number of strategies is very helpful. I'm not going to make this a long story about why my street needs it over anybody else, but I definitely do agree that making a list of the priorities would be fair, and then just explaining why your street is 20th over 27th. Because I can imagine that I put up a sign on my I didn't even go door to door, just saying, does anyone want a speed hump? And in under 24 hours, 13 of 24 people on my street said yes. So they're not like worried about what's going to happen. They just can't believe it's going to take 27 years to happen. So I think that for the right street, I don't think there's going to be a big problem. And I just strongly recommend that you try to speed up the process and just make it transparent. Because if there's somebody who needs it more than our street, that's fair. But I certainly don't think it should be a first comes, first serve. So I totally support that.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anybody else in the queue who would like to comment on this item at this time? You can use the raise hand function and we would be delighted to hear your comment. Okay, I don't see any hands going up. There are 15 participants and I don't see any hands going up. So I'll turn back to the board. Any additional questions or comments from board members? So I think the intent of this policy, as was just mentioned, is to speed things up, make it more transparent. And I recognize the tension between public notice and additional public notification and doing things efficiently. We will have to find the right balance, and I think we will strive to strike that. And if not, I know our neighbors in Brookline will let us know. So we will figure that out, or we will attempt to fix that. But I do think there's a demand for more action, and as I said earlier, I think we need to meet that demand as best we can. So I plan to support this, the adoption of this policy. So unless anyone has anything else, I wonder if somebody would like to make a motion to approve the traffic calming policy as written, which will replace the policy from 2018.
So moved.
Thanks, Len. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Nancy. Amy, Sam, someone call the roll.
Len,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
Shanali,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and Wendy.
Yes.
So I want to congratulate the Transportation Board and Amy and staff on this modification to the policy, and I'm really excited to think that we may be able to see some more of these traffic calming requests implemented each year, because there's really a great need for them. So congratulations to you all. I think this is a great step in the right direction.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. We'll move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is other business. Is there any other business?
Washington Street DRC tomorrow night, 6 p.m.
Thanks for reminding me. And item 7 is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank
and
you
I'll
all.
see a
See you
lot of you
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.